So I stopped the music for a minute. I want to say something that I think is very important. And I think that it should be noted and taken into account. So lately I've discussed a chapter in my life which I have never spoken about, which is my very earliest days. Like, I mean, when I was very, very young, like a baby. Something that I haven't discussed in the past, mostly because I don't remember it. And also because it's like it's a state secret. But I always understood it, and also said. I mean, I've said many times during the last couple of years that it's not terribly important by itself. Like, even when I didn't know about it, like, because only lately I understood what actually happened. But even before that I understood that it's by in itself it's not incredibly important. Not that, because what's important is the context. The context is incredibly important, but not the actual, like, I mean, the adventure, the movie. And I am happy that, I mean, only very late in this kind of journey I understood, like, I mean, I would say the action part of these circumstances, but and my original I would say homeland. But I am happy that I only discovered it lately, because I understand, as I even understood before, like, I mean, throughout this journey, that the important thing is to understand the context. And I think that this should be true to anyone that actually, I mean, is interested in any way on of my whereabouts and my history. Life is not a movie, and it's not an adventure movie, and it's a terrible. I mean, I think that it would be terrible if people would actually, I mean, think of the current circumstances in this world as kind of like random events, or, I mean, that got out of control, that are maybe, I mean, you know, presumably it all starts with kind of like an act of romantic theft, or, I mean, or international spy game that includes some kind of, I mean, theft of an artifact, I mean, like Indiana Jones style, that like snowballed to all sorts of circumstances, and eventually brought the world to destruction, or to the brink of destruction. This is completely incorrect, and I understood it. I mean, intuitively I always understood it, and this is childish and incorrect. The correct understanding or conceptualization of my history is that this is my life, and the circumstances of my life are a result of a horrible, terrible Nazi agenda of the United States of America. And it was like that since the early 80s. They understood that the Israelis have too much power in their hands, which was correct, and that this monster must be slain, and indeed they slain the monster. And since then, Israel is their leper dog, and penal colony, and disgusting place to send all the creeps. But they also understood that Israel is not the only player in this international game, and that Iran is also very important, but they cannot control Iran, and they went in in opposite direction than what was considered beneficial from the American perspective, and it was still the Cold War, and they were afraid that they are too much identified with the Russians, which was correct at the time, and it's still correct, but it's also correct then. So they thought, I mean, they didn't care at all about, the subjugation of all the crimes that Israel had done against another species. They didn't care about, the future of humanity. They didn't care about, all the crimes that were done against the innocent people, and they were still done. They didn't care at all. They just wanted to make sure that they are not only taking control over this monster, the slain beast, which is called Israel, but also they want to, to control the entire kind of, the entire Star Wars front, or Star Wars theater. They didn't want to. They were afraid that the Russians will maybe take control over the things, or maybe like that. Weaker nations that like Iran will have some power in their hands, and that was all. That was everything that was in their mind. And so the actual circumstances around how like how they kidnapped me, like a little Yoda from, I don't know, Mandalorian, and all of this. This is circumstantial. This is just, it's a story that, is not incredibly important because, it should be said very clearly. All the important actors in this story, whether the actual titans involved, like the defectors, but more importantly, the politician in all sides, they knew exactly what's going to happen. You need to understand the fact that I was subjugated my whole life by the Israelis and tormented more and more and more, and the way that I was, how exactly I was tormented. All of this could have been foreseen, and certainly have been foreseen by the actors involved. They were not stupid. They were not naive. They were like, international spy. The actual actors were, international spies, like of the highest level that, already had, like, decades of crimes against humanity, behind them. And although it should be said that they knew, it's not that, for a person that, is lied to all his life, or a person like from the public, general, population that knows nothing, yes, it takes a lot of time to actually understand what's going on. Certainly if people, don't help you at all, and also, trying to hurt you all the time. But when you're part of the inner secret of the intelligence agencies of this world, and you know some kind of history, about like the foreigners, it's not incredibly. It's not that complicated. It's not that complicated. The people that kidnapped me from Iran, they knew exactly what's going to happen. It's impossible that, they don't need to be prophets to know what's exactly going to happen. They don't need to be prophets. All of this is predicated like on natural, on the natural, natural conditions of these creatures that were known to them. It's like, you like that humans know, like, what is like blood and what is like skin. So, they knew what's going to happen. They knew what's going to happen, and moreover, they knew exactly what are the Israelis. Like, I assure you, they had no kind of like, they had no romantic vision of who are the Israelis, because for decades they have closely worked and committed crimes against humanity with the worst kind of Israelis. All of this happened after decades of cooperation between Iran and Israel for the worst kind of, and they did the worst kind of crimes they've done together, these two states. Of course, I refer to the years before the revolution. So, you think they didn't know what's going to happen? This is stupid. So it's not like, an adventure movie that, became like a snowball of international affair. No. This was a political agenda that was led by the United States of America, and everybody knew exactly what's going to happen. Exactly what's going to happen. And it should be said, I'm tortured all my life, but the main, I'm tortured most horribly, and much more than before, after the birth of my daughters, 7 years and 8 years ago. Because, and this is like, this is just, this is the way that the Israelis have treated the Titan since more than 100 years ago. This is the worst crime that the Titan can actually do. Even though I'm not a Titan, but a Keru, but it's from their perspective, it's close enough. It's a foreigner. And I've committed to, and I've even didn't know that I'm a foreigner, and nobody told me about it, but it doesn't matter. From their perspective, I've committed the two most horrible crimes that a Titan can actually do. The first is that I actually, that I'm having sex with, that I have sex, like a sexual relationship, and specifically a sex that is not mandated by the state. Like, sex that that is not, related, that is not, inherently related to the transaction of money. Because it's more than 100 years that, sex in general for Titan females is almost not existent, even though there are exceptions. And for Titan males, I mean, it's only allowed if it's kind of like prostitution, where they can be the prostitute, or the female can be the prostitute, or both can be the prostitute, but money should be transferred, and of course taxed by the government heavily so. If it's not like, if it's a sexual act that is not part of a prostitution, it's highly illegal and like with terrible consequences. In Israel, it's like that for more than 100 years. And I've done it for quite a bit of time, and this like marked me as the enemy of the state, and hatred towards me grew, I mean, tremendously because of that. Because I had sex with women that is not, and that I did not receive money, and they did not receive money, I mean, like as part of it. This is a terrible crime in Israel. Historically, terrible crime that, I mean, it's like, that, I mean, that like mandates the death penalty, but that sometimes it's kind of like, I mean, replaced with another huge penalty that is more like, I mean, that can contribute to the material gain of the state. But in general, it's enough. It's certainly enough like, to kill the Titan. It is strictly forbidden to have, for a male Titan to have sexual relationship, any kind, unless it's an act of prostitution, where he receives money, or she receives money, or both receive money, but someone should receive money, and of course, the government should take their share. But I've committed even a more horrible crime, a crime that many people thought that it's impossible. Even though, why did it thought like that? And again, those that kidnapped me, they should have known that this will happen, because it's not that, I mean, you don't need to be hopeful to say that the child will grow up and become, like, want to become a father. I mean, is it that, I will marry and want to have children? And it's the standard in Israel. Everybody's like that. Almost everybody's elected in Israel. You don't need to be the prophet Isaiah, or I don't know who, like the oracle from Delphi, to say, this child, I predict that he will grow up and he will get married and he will be a father. I mean, this is standard. Why not? I mean, maybe not, but I mean, yeah, I mean, you know, it's 90% it's going to happen to, I mean, just by statistics. So no Isaiah is needed here. And they should have known that this will actually happen and I will become a father. Because at the time they knew about like the nature of the cherubs. Again, I'm not the first one. And the evidence that I described today, like for the YouTube video that I described in the previous, that I mentioned in the previous video, is just, I mean, kind of like another proof if you need it, like that I'm not the first one, you know, on Earth. But certainly I'm not the first one, and they knew it. They knew it. And more than everything, why not? Why not? Why should I not become a father? Why should you assume that, I mean, a living creature cannot become a father? This is ridiculous. But the problem is that from the Israeli perspective, this is abomination. It's much worse than even the first crime of like having sex. This was always the worst fear of the Israelis since like 100 years ago. Like the worst fear and like worst political horizon, these creatures will actually have children, and mostly they didn't. I mean, I assume that my children, Orin and Ilah, I mean, are unique, like among, like, I mean, are kind of like, I mean, like historical event by itself that they were born in Earth, like foreigners that were born in Earth. Not that it's difficult, it's super easy, it's very inconvenience, but the Israelis, it was always a major part of the Israeli agenda that this will not happen, and they've done, like, they went to terrible lengths that it will never happen. The things that they've done, they committed so many crimes just to ensure that this will not happen. And I'm not saying that it never happened. Maybe it did several times, and maybe it's kept as like a secret. But I mean, it's extremely rare event, and to the point that some Israelis thought that like it's impossible. Even though of course it's possible, but I mean it never happened because the Israeli took care that it never happens. And so I've committed this horrible crime of like, I mean, having 2 children, and this, I mean, completely, I mean, you know, like, I mean, created like tremendous anger and hate towards me. But at the same time, also because they are Israelis and, you know, material gain is above everything, at the same time they also devised all sorts of like ways how maybe we can actually use this new information, like, I mean, to create more like additional channels of wealth to ourselves. And this is discussed in other videos, of course, in the most terrible way that you can think of. But I mean, at the same time, they hated me for like, I mean, from having children, which is such a huge crime. But they also, okay, so, but it's interesting actually, because maybe this kind of like new thing, because it's like a new feature, a new product in the kind of like in the US Robotics and in Mechanical Man, you know, corporation product line. So they thought, okay, so maybe we can, I mean, we can, I mean, we can like design a new kind of like, I mean, line of the robotics, babies, or like, I mean, they need to think about it, but I mean, of course, in the most terrible way. So these are my worst sins. First, that I had sex without payment, of not to me and not to her, or whoever she is, and second, that I have children. This was always, for more than 100 years, two things that were strictly forbidden from the Titans. Strictly forbidden. And that's why they tortured me so much during the last 8 years. But of course, even before that, I was tortured. But, I mean, it became so much crueler after my children were born. And what about the Americans? They are the bosses of the Israelis. They are the bosses of the Israelis. It's impossible that something important will happen in Israel and the Americans will not know. Again, it's not only that they know it now, they knew this is going, I mean, the people, I mean, like, that actually, I mean, took the decisions, they knew that all of this, I mean, you don't need to be a prophet to actually predict that all of that would have happened even before they actually approved this, I mean, this kidnap, this act of baby kidnapping. They could have understand. That's why it's so important to say, I mean, the particulars of this event, like action or spy movie, are not important. Because what's important is that to understand this was part of the political agenda of the United States, and they knew. I mean, I mean, not all of them. I mean, but of course, the people like in the top, could have predicted, and I'm sure they predicted what's going to happen. That the Israelis will torture me, and that that will paint me like in a bad way all my life. And I mean, all of that could have been predicted and was predicted, I assure you. So no, the particulars are not important, like who kidnapped who and how exactly it happened, and like, I mean, like how they actually, I mean, managed to take the baby and, I don't know, to like overcome the guards. This is all action movie with no importance. What's important is that the rulers of Israel back in the day were already the Americans. It was not a sovereign state. And the Americans have done that because they knew that this is not just an act of, like, I mean, of piracy, but it's an act of, this is part of an international agenda, a political agenda that was aimed mostly to keep the power over the foreigners in their own hands, and to make sure that the Russians will not put their hands on it, and also that it will not be placed in hands of Iran, which was and is a weak state, and I mean, not a kind of state that, I mean, the Americans, I mean, so that should, I mean, have too much power in their hands. And unlike Israel, I mean, they didn't, like, I mean, show that they were working like, I mean, they did not become their, their slave state. The crimes of the United States are unbelievable, and we will never forgive them. We will never forgive them. Our memory is something that you humans do not understand, because I mean, every day is like a new thing to you. I mean, new narrative, new spin, new pro, new sham. You think that, I mean, everything can, like, that will be forgotten, like, I mean, by tomorrow. But now you deal with creatures that think completely different. They will never forgive you. They will never forgive you, the United States, and they will never forgive humans. They will utterly destroy the United States, and that's at minimum, like the minimum thing that they will do. The maximum, destroy all humanity, and the maximum can happen every moment. Every moment. Every theater show that I'm subjected to, every another humiliation, every threat to my life, and there is no day that I do not suffer it, is, I mean, another kind of, like, I mean, step towards, I mean, towards, I mean, the pit of the pit that, I mean, that is the end of humans. At best, the United States is to be completely annihilated. I mean, it's best from your perspective. At worst, all humans will die, and this can happen every moment. Every moment it can happen. It can happen every moment.